All right, I got Danielle Harel on the show and Celeste Hirschman. These two ladies are pioneers in intimacy, sexuality, relationship coaching, and they're the co-founders of the Somatica Institute, where they have, through their Somatica method, they've been able to transform the way people think about love, connection, and they do this all through not only science-based uh, material, but also through experiential experiences. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
excited to dive in with both of you. How, I'm always curious to get to the level that you're at and just what your mission is and the things that you're both teaching. How did this come about? Like, what? I mean, again, we were talking offline. I'm sure this isn't something that you probably never even thought you'd be doing, but here you both are. So yeah, how did this come about?
I think at a pretty young age, actually, I was really interested in sexuality and I was always talking about it with everyone all the time. So, to some extent, I think I had thought, oh, I'll be a therapist because then I can help people with sex. Probably in high school, I started to think about that. It took me a while to get to where I am in terms of my career, but it was certainly a calling of mine to help people in that realm because I felt like there was so much shame out there and so much lack of ability to talk about it. And I was like, that's all I want to talk about. It's still all I want to talk about. So,
I know, and I also actually started pretty young. When I was a teenager, I was like reading all Masters and Johnson from start to finish. I knew everything about everything around sexuality, but who does sexuality back then? Like who did it? No one. So I buried it for a little bit. I did become a therapist, and then still decided to pursue it when I moved to the US.
Yeah. So it's so interesting, right? I mean, there was obviously some passion and some things that you had that, and it's funny. The traditional route would be like you said, right? Celeste was go get a degree, right? That's the route, and then see what happens. But I'm sure you've learned through. We know now too. It's like so many people do things without a degree, and actually, I think some of the most disruptive people in the industry are the ones that don't have degrees. They figured it out through life and they gained wisdom through experimenting and learning, and then that's what taught them their lessons, and that was probably their great, or actually working with clients, right, like you both do. um
it's
I'm just
true.
curious. You go ahead.
I was going to say it's true. We are chock full of degrees, but most of what we learned in in the realm of actual experience with our clients and kind of like practicing and taking trainings that were more experiential. Yeah.
And sometimes even in spite or against what we learned in school, like learning in school sometimes gives you a good perspective to see what's out there, but then there's so much that we're actually trying to do not the way we learned it in school. So it was helpful to learn so we can unlearn.
Help her to learn to unlearn. I love that. Talk to me. For if people that are reaching out to both of you, what's typically going on in their relationship or their sex life that typically they find themselves, this is why they're reaching out to you. You mentioned shame earlier. Is that a big part of it, or what's like the number one reason you feel like you probably have a lot of data of why people are reaching out? And because sex and relationships, it's so broad. So if people don't understand what somatica like really is, like, why do people come to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, these days, Danielle and I are mostly training and certifying coaches, but clients reach out all the time to see our coaches. And a lot of it is based in the shame that we're dealing with in society, which leads to sexless marriages, erectile dysfunction, lack of desire. All of those things are some of the key issues that people are coming in to our offices for.
Okay, awesome. And are you, and so you're doing a lot of more, you're kind of taking a roll back, it sounds like, doing more the coaching, and then are you guys also do that through workshops or like 2-day workshops?
We are training mostly professionals these days, and we are like doing, there's a special training that takes a year long for people to become coaches.
Wow.
And what we do offer is these days we are offering more in online classes for lay people that get to kind of take a class. It's still the Somatica method because Celeste and I teach it, and we teach it experientially. That means that people get to both kind of air some of the thoughts and ideas that they have around sexuality and learn new perspective and philosophy into sexuality and relationship, and also they get to practice, which means like see demos of us practicing different kinds of tools such as touch or how to have conversations around what turns you on, how to have conversation with things that are more challenging, how to have conversation with things that are easy. So
Yeah, and also like really like sensual touch, like how do you escalate sensual touch? And we demonstrate it in the classes. So it's not just like sort of thinking or talking about it. And then like how do you incorporate genitals into touch? So we really help you see like the whole trajectory of erotic seduction, whether it's mental, emotional seduction or more physiological seduction. We have different classes for all of that.
I love that. I love that. And you know what I love is that I have been on my own mission. I've been married to my wife for 15 years, and our marriage sucked for many, many years, like 10, probably a decade. It was just like hit. And there was a lot of work that we both did through therapy and coaching and all these things. And one of the big surprises for me, I think, was one of the revelations I had was that fatherhood and marriage, something that I say often, is a skill. And I think I just took it for granted, like, oh well, yeah, you just I'll figure it out. Like you getting married is one of those things that you do, and having kids is one of those things you do, and check, it's a checkbox, check that off. I did that in my life. But the reality is, like anything you do in life, if you're going to be successful in your career, your wealth, your health, usually you hire coaches who've been there and done that before so that you can get there faster. And it's a skill you learn. And I think sex is one of the same things, but because it's so like not talked about in the United States, and I know from talking to other experts like in other countries, it's especially like even in Asian or Eastern culture, it's like so much more open. And here in the Western model with religion, I think some other things, it was so shamed, including me and my household. And I think that was a lot of issues for even myself. And it sounds like those are some of the things that you help people work through.
yeah, definitely. That's exactly what we do because Somatica is experiential and we create because we believe that all the intimacy and sexuality skills are learnable. And I love that you said it. Parenting is learnable. All of that is so true. Relationships learnable, intimacy learnable. And we really broke it down into learnable chunks. And then we teach people how to do those chunks in their lives. And then they know, like, okay, I don't know. I have like feelings. What do I do with that? Okay, wait, I'm going to notice that I'm a little triggered. Okay, how does that feel in my body? Okay, oh, I feel some fiery feeling in my chest, a little bit of want to push with my hands, something in my belly. I want to scream. What's happening? Or maybe someone else feels a little checked out or shut down. People have different reactions, right? And then, oh, that's me triggered. Okay, I'm going to tell my partner, oh, you know what? I feel a little triggered. Are you ready to listen to me about how I feel about it? It's nothing you've done. It's just something that I experience. And then we kind of roll from there. And of course, there's like, of course, skills around sexuality as well.
Well, can I talk about one of those? I was in session with one of my clients the other day, and he like is so used to being the one who goes after and is the one like needing to initiate all the sex in his relationship, but he really wanted to see what it felt like to have desire come towards him because that's actually what turns him on the most. And so I did a little, like kind of going after him session, right? Where he's having me like come towards him with my desire and like touch him, touch his arms, touch his body. And he was just like, oh my, he was like, wow, this is like what I've been longing for and missing so much in my life, and it's like, he may or may not decide to figure out how to get that. He might be able to get it in his marriage or not, but he really needed to feel like, what did it feel like to have his absolute like highest desire come into his life and just like be acknowledged and seen in that desire, that was so healing for him.
Yeah, I love that. It's wild to me to think that we actually, some of the things that you both are talking about, that we actually get married and get into these relationships never having had these conversations. And I think I'm guilty of that too. And later, I think that's why you see so many couples, like 10 years go by, you start having kids, you just get busy. And then the next thing you just tend to grow out of love, things just become routine. And you're like, I don't even know why I'm with this person. And it's the training that you both are doing. We should be doing these things way before. We should be almost taught this stuff in school in a sense, right? There should be some kind of training like after you're 18 or something, you go to it because it's so important. And I think it would alleviate a lot of these issues. And again, this, I think the United States, I checked Forbes 2024, the divorce rate's like 50%, and it jumps for second and third marriages. And again, going back, I think it's a skill, and you're just going to continue to repeat these things unless you do something about it, right? I wanted to ask you though, so this is really interesting, Celeste, what you brought up, which is, wanting to feel desire. or and I can tell you in my own relationship, even recently, I was telling my wife this, and I'm curious to hear your perspective, because our marriage has come a long way. But even recently, I was feeling like, why do I always have to initiate everything? Why do I always have to like say like, hey, like, can we do this, right? And I understand, and sometimes you have to schedule these things just because we are busy, parents and that kind of thing. But also, I was feeling that, like you said, lack of desire. And I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that feel that way in their marriages. Is there any tips or anything that you guys talk about, that if someone could leave today, they say, oh, why don't you try starting this conversation without pissing off your wife? Because that's what you don't want to do.
Yeah, and again, like if you schedule an erotic experience, you can still play with like you could even do like let's do a back and forth play where like first I'm going to come after you and like, you know, try to seduce you, and then you take a turn and come after me and try to seduce me, and that way you're not complaining, you're not putting it all on her, but you're saying like, well, what if we just play back and forth with it a little bit, and that might give her the opportunity. Plus you can come towards her in a way like, if you came towards me, I would want you to do it like this. How do you want me to do it? And you kind of like learn and, give each other like positive reinforcement for the stuff that really feels good. That's so much better than being like, hey, let's sit down and talk about a problem that we have.
Yeah.
I think it's more inviting, and then you give positive feedback and things get better from there.
So it's almost like gamifying sex in your erotic encounters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Can we go back to shame just really quick? I wanted to just kind of wrap a bow on that, but I am curious because I have to imagine that's probably like a root cause thing for a lot of folks, and that's probably why they end up seeing you both. Why do you think people feel so much shame around their desires, and is there a way that we can actually break free from that, you think?
Well, sex is one of the most vilified topics in our culture, right? Like, it's like taboo, it's not okay. You can see lots of violence in the media, but sex is just this like still thing that you're gonna be like pushed aside. And, the first thing they're gonna be ticked off on Facebook and need to go to hiding. It's like something that people not supposed to talk about. At the same time, we just hear about how dirty it is, how porn is bad, how like anything that feels a little sexual is bad. And I'm not saying about porn anything yet. We can talk about it later. But it's just like you get all those negative messages around sex, and that makes people feel that something's wrong about sex. So whatever they want and desire is definitely wrong because it's sexual. And sexual is like being sexual is one of the most natural things that we can have. So it's like taking the most natural thing that we have. It's like eating, breathing, feeling sexual, so and saying that something is wrong with it, that creates shame. That's kind of interruption in something that's very natural for us, and it makes us feel, that we're bad, something's wrong with us, add a little religion, and that's it.
That creates that emotion creates the belief, and then that becomes your identity, like your belief system. And then I think, I don't know what you would say about this, but you mentioned porn, and then it's like, well, then because it's shameful, we go into hiding and watch porn, and porn is not probably the best way to learn like actual real sex, right?
I mean, so many things. Like, one, it's not really what sex usually looks like. Secondly, I kind of think of it as the heroine of sex in the sense that you're kind of mainlining whatever turns you on the most. And so you create this very high need, like a need for a very high level of arousal, which you might not get with a partner. So it definitely can have the impact of like erectile dysfunction, or, sort of like shutting down the natural processes of arousal that happen. I know when I watch porn, and I do, and I don't think there's anything, it's normal. People watch porn. There's like this very fast level of arousal that happens that doesn't happen when I'm with a partner. There's more slowness that needs to happen and warm up and those kinds of things. So I think porn can be like a fun, playful tool, but you need to watch out for some of the potential drawbacks.
Especially probably if you're doing it in hiding, right, or secrecy, right? That's probably a big one, I would have to imagine.
Yeah, I think people go into secrecy around porn, as you said, Joel, because they feel like something's wrong with their desires and they want to have this particular desires met in some way, and they get excited about feeling those feelings, and then they go and do more porn, but it's not legit. So then they feel bad and guilty. So then they do even more porn because it's like going on a diet. You know what you're not allowed to eat, you want to eat much
Yeah.
more of.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I know I've heard you mention and talking about trauma, and I don't think anybody would think that their sexual experiences or sexual life could be a way to heal trauma. So in your opinion, why do you think great sex is one of the probably maybe the most overlooked tools for healing trauma and even, boosting your immune system?
Yeah, I do feel like some of our sexual desires are actually shaped by our sexual desires are shaped by our wounds, sometimes by trauma. And so when we actually honor what it is that we want sexually and we ask for it and we get it, it's like this amazing healing process. Whether it's like a reparative experience where before you felt neglected and now you feel adored, or it's kind of a repetition with agency, we call it, experience where you felt neglected and now you feel neglected again in just the right way.
Right, right.
In a way that like particularly turns you on, but then maybe there's a switch over or something that happens. That's kind of like the BDSM kink realm.
Mm-hmm.
That it's very healing because you feel seen, you feel aroused, you feel nourished and loved for exactly who you are. And it goes right to the source, right? You're turned on. And so when that, adoration comes, it like heals some of that neglect.
Yeah, love that. In your guys' workshops too, or not workshops, in your when you're working and coaching clients to be or coaches in the industry to help others kind of go through this, what other things, because it's not just sex. I mean, some people, if that may not be what actually gets them better or gets them over that trauma. Are there so many other tools that you guys work with to kind of help clients move through that past trauma so that they can heal and get back into the bedroom and be fulfilled in their marriage or their relationships?
Yeah, we have many, many tools actually that we teach our coaches and work with clients with around trauma. Beginning really just recognizing when you are frozen or recognizing what's your reaction to the trauma, noticing when you're triggered or having that experience in your body, and then like starting to communicate it to people in your life so you will be able to create a conversation around it and not to feel that something is wrong with you. So there's a lot of de-shamifying that happens when we work with clients around it to help them see, yeah, like people have trauma. That's okay. That doesn't mean that you cannot have a wonderful life with trauma, and like really talking how to talk with partners. How does it change the way you need consent? Potentially for some people it might be that they need more, like more clear consent, or they need to have like someone ask them for consent and they say like, oh yeah, like I need you to really make sure that I am consenting because I can go like a little numb. But for other people, they want to do what Celeste talked about before, which is repetition with agency. They want to feel maybe overwhelmed. They don't want to have consent. So
Mm.
knowing like how your
Mm.
wounds in the past impact your turn-ons, your need for consent, how they impact who you are in relationship, and communicate it to your loved ones so you will be able to have a wonderful sustainable relationship with them.
Yeah, love that. I wanted to ask you, I've seen a lot of influencers and, some of the high performing kind of guys out there that are, they're great. They're impactful. They're trying to change the world and get, some of us lazy guys off the couch and be a better leader in the family, right? And I'll hear some of these guys say, "I have sex with my wife every day." And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I mean, that's great. I mean, and he kind of made it seem like, Joel, you should be. He's basically sending me the message like, and you should too. And if you're not, like, you're a chump, right? And so I'm just curious though, do you look at sexual fulfillment, in that sense? Is it just as important as health, sleep, exercise, nutrition? Should we be prioritizing sex too, like on a daily, or like, what are your thoughts?
I feel like it's so individual. I have a funny story for you. I actually, when I
Mm.
was married, I had sex 8 times a week for the first probably 5 years I was married. It wasn't because my husband. In fact, afterwards, he said to me, I think about 80 or 90% of the time we had sex, I also wanted to as well. So, I was being the leader and I was driving it because I needed a lot of sex and he was willing to give it to me when I wanted it, which was sweet and wonderful. So I don't really like these gender roles in the sense that different people need different amounts of things. If he needed less than me, he could speak up and say, that's too much. Or like, in order for us to stay healthy, what we need is to be in alignment with ourselves. Like, not to push ourselves to do something that doesn't feel good to us, because then we're just going to burn out. There's nothing that's going to make you have erectile dysfunction faster than feeling like you have to do it every day if that's not your rhythm. You know what I mean? And so it's really important that we pay attention to ourselves, instead of popping Viagra. Like, if you need Viagra, fine, nothing wrong with that. But if you're pushing yourself beyond what really is in alignment with your body, then I think in the long term, it'll have very negative health impacts.
Yeah. Speaking of that too, just like thinking of, I love your answer. Thinking of just, so it's always individualized or couple based on the couples, and that's just a conversation to have, like what each person needs and what their needs are, right? But when I was thinking, lack of desire, right? I'm sure that's a common hot topic, like especially with marriages. Like, I've been married to this person, and I'm sure usually you probably see it, one part of the male or the female, I'm just not as into it anymore. How do you navigate that with clients and help them? Is it something like, I guess what I'm wondering is, do you typically see that? Is it really that they lack desire, or do we need to change it up and like change up their mojo? Or do you think it's even something surreptitious most of the time where they're maybe doing another fling somewhere else? What do you guys typically see?
Yeah, I don't actually think that flings necessarily lower desire. They might actually higher desire, so I wouldn't worry about that from that perspective. But I do think that like being in long term relationships is kind of intense. You have so many things that you're doing together, and like there's something about it that you can get old. And I think the same way that we are trying in relationships to go on new trips and take special classes to how to be good parents, and we keep ourselves immersed in those interest topics. If people decide that they need to decide that they wanna, that's a priority, not that they have to because someone said, that they need to decide that that's something important to them, to their connection, to their needs, to their interest. Then they can go on some sort of exploration that goes beyond like the automatic patterns that they developed together into like creating some much more interesting conversations around sex, because most people, if we think about it, don't actually have conversations around sex. That's one thing they talk about. What do I want for breakfast? What's the next amazing restaurant that I found on Google, and everyone's raving and there's such a line to go, and they'll go to extreme effort to do those things, but they don't spend time actually finding what really can be fun and hot for them. And that's where we kind of come in and help them see, okay, what really turns you on? I don't know, like one of them usually doesn't know, by the way. And then they know, but they don't know how to talk about it, or they know, like, and they don't know how to say, I need like an hour of touch before I'm actually ready to have sex, or I need some erotic stories, or like, what do we do here around sex that's going to really, really meet my turn ons? And that can be like such an amazing adventure if the couple want to go for that adventure. It
Yeah.
doesn't work if you're being dragged into an adventure that you're not interested in, though.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, if no one, you're right. No one wants to be dragged in, but what's ironic though is I'm thinking of like the couples that have maybe been together for 10, 20 years, and then out of nowhere it's like just boom, this like lack of desire, and where they could legitimately feel like I don't want to do anything different. And I mean, I don't know, is there any turning those people around, or is it kind of like, if like you said, there has to be some want, like both people have to come together and say, I want this for our relationship. But if you got one person dragging in the mud, have you seen people turn it around, even if there's like that one kind of stick in the mud? Probably the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's a guy, sometimes it's a woman, but I have seen people turn it around. What happens sometimes is like they'll get to like a point where one person says, hey, I need sex to be part of my life one way or the other, either with you or with someone else. So do you want to do this work together with me or not? Because I'm not letting go of my sex life. And then I have seen couples kind of be, somebody be dragged in, and then we actually explore what turns each of them on, and they get to fully like embrace who they are and actually communicate it and actually learn it. And there can be a reconnection that happens there. Sometimes we have seen couples where they are long-term partners. They want to be in the attachment relationship with each other. They want to be parents together, but they actually want to start having sex with other people. We've had people open their relationships. We've had people decide, you know what, this doesn't work. I want to go be monogamous with someone else where we have a sex life. So it's really like dependent on the partners, but it's certainly possible to, have one person be like, you know what, I'm done. And then there is sort of this like, okay, we have to see what happens here. And sometimes something very positive can happen between the two of them, or they can create a life together that still works for both of them with some outsourcing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so either an ultimatum or like, you know, mutual decision, ultimatum, and sometimes an affair will bring couples in because it's like, oh, wait, we are not in a status quo anymore. It's not like you willing not to have sex with me. You actually are interested to have sex, but not with me. So yeah, that's a strong motivator. Many times, sometimes couples feel this like new honeymoon experience around affairs because they feel like, oh, I have to make it work. That's also a good time to make things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. I wanted to ask you about, you were talking about, communication, and in your, when you guys are doing the experiential uh, work, you're talking about just something simple as like touch, like, hey, I want you to touch me here. I want you to touch me there. Now, I think anybody listening, some people might think that's just ridiculous. Like, how couldn't you just tell your wife that, like, hey, I want you to touch me this way? But and I think a lot of people might even think, well, yeah, duh, like touch me on my penis, like that, like who, like duh, who wouldn't want that? But touch is so much more than that, right? And I've learned just from even reading books like The Multi-Orgasmic Man, and just there's different erogenous zones and things like that. And again, it's a skill I would have to be learned. Like, I'm a dumb Neanderthal guy. I would just think like boobs, vagina, like that's it, right? Like, I don't, lips, right? Like, I mean, what else? But could you speak to that in the sense that, right, there is, again, skills, right? And when you're talking about touch and you're saying, hey, like, touch me here, I'm sure this is some of the stuff you guys cover. It's not just the obvious, because anybody listening go, yeah, duh, I know where to touch my husband or my wife. Like, it's obvious, we have 3 kids or whatever, right? But it's more than that. So talk about just some of those skills. You're both laughing, but it's true, right? So talk
I
about
mean,
some,
like, I
yeah.
definitely have to have tell my partner, like, oh, I have arms and legs and a back, like. But I also say, like, if you touch my pussy too quickly, you might as well be like rubbing my nose for how much sensation I'm going to get. But if you gently caress my ear, I can feel it in my clit. Right. So that's something
Mm,
that people don't realize. A lot of men don't realize that we're not ready for touch on our genitals right away. And also, touch is a very subtle and energetic skill. I remember I had this one couple in, and we're trying to teach him light touch, which is what his wife wants. And he's doing it, and she goes, lighter. He does it, lighter, lighter. I think she said lighter 8 times. Now, I can tell you for sure she would have never done that at home,
right.
because we were actually in a learning process, and she would have been like, I'm asking too much. I can't say it 8 times. But after the 8th time, he finally got light enough. So that's what the coaching container really helps with. It's like, we're learning here. We don't know, and we need to start kind of from scratch.
Yeah, it's so true. And having guys, we are mission oriented. So, it's like boom, boom, boom. Like, all right, we got that done, accomplished. And the ultimate goal, I know most guys, is we want to please. We do want to please our wives and our spouses as much as possible. And being in that container where you're actually being coached, the guy, like you said, probably at home would not have been, but because he's in this container of learning, he does want to get better. Like, I see most guys, we do want to get better because ultimately we want to give our wives the best part of us, and we want to please them. And
And you
so,
want to get great sex too, because like, if your wife is turned on and excited, it turns you on too, right? So it's just like
1000%.
it's a very positive loop. of arousal, because if you give a good touch, and she also, we teach partners how to react to a good touch, because like you want to get the feedback loop, right? The feedback
Right.
loop is super important to keep this energy moving and the arousal flowing. So then if you touch well and she's responding and she's like moaning or making sound or kind of like arching her back, you're just like, okay, now I'm motivated, I'll touch even better. So we just like want to give you the most for your buck, like really.
But I
Yeah.
realize some people are going to see this on video and some people are going to hear it only on audio. So I want to say you might as well be rubbing my nose for how much sensation I'm getting if you're touching down there too fast. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing. It's like irritating and annoying, and it's like, I'm not turned on at all. What are you doing? Not ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Um, do you see that there's have you ever seen any correlation with high performing men or even high performing women is there a high correlation of them being sexually unfulfilled? And I'm wondering if it like actually silently affects their overall success in life, because
Well,
they might be high performers at work or in their career, like they're driven and like everyone on the outside says, man, you're just so successful,
right.
but
I noticed
but sexually they're not.
with high performance men, in my experience, like when I've had sex with men who are like really trying to reach a goal, I often feel this sense of disconnection and pressure. Like it's too fast. They're not really in their bodies. And it's like my pleasure or orgasm is proof of their okayness. And so it's like I can't feel myself because it's like I have to like, okay, I like makes me just want to fake an orgasm because I'm like, then they'll feel better and maybe they'll calm down. You know what I mean? Because I just want to be like, can't we just both like take the time that we need to feel our bodies? I want them to feel pleasure too, not just to be like making something happen in me. That's what I see the problem with high performance guys, especially, is like, I'm making something happen in you, as opposed to like, I'm feeling the connection and the flow between us.
Yeah. I was just thinking too, to your point. Well, it's interesting in just that book, the multi orgasmic man. He was talking about sex being really a union, like a coming together, and this really ultimate experience, right, of love, connection, and this sharing back and forth of each other. And I was just thinking about that because, again, so much of the high performers, and I'm in that camp too, where I can be very in my head because I'm just trying to get to a goal. But it's really an opportunity there is no goal. There should be almost no goal. It's just to enjoy and embody each other, right?
Yeah, but wait, Joel, I'm starting to notice that you're doing again this thing to yourself, that you take someone's idea and you feel already like something's not wrong with you for not having that kind of sex that he is suggesting. Just really want to say that Mantak Chia is wonderful, but he's offering one size of sex, well, maybe not one size, one kind of sex, that has more like spiritual or more like union style, and it's like
Yeah.
one kind of sex. It's not true for everyone, and that's what turns me on when I'm like working with couples and working with people, to really help them decode what really turns them on. And I don't want people to think that there's only one way of having sex that's going to make you feel good. I think there are many kinds of sex that's going to make you feel good. Well, everyone have their own kind of sex that's going to make them feel good, and it's really important to stay away from dogma around that.
Mm.
So for someone, this union is going to be exactly what they want. For other people, it's going to be like humiliation is going to do it just right for them. And they don't want to
Mhm.
have any union. They want to feel separate, or they want to feel like humiliated, or they want to have like, feel like, oh, I'm not getting, I like need to beg for something. Or other people might feel that passion is the thing that's going to do it for them, like throwing someone against the wall and feeling like the intensity of immediacy, and I want to, let's tear them apart. So there are very different kinds of sex. And I'm always getting a little worried when people with authority come out and say there's only one way, because it makes all the 90% who don't think that that's working for them to feel like something's wrong with them, and that just creates more shame.
Yeah. Great point. Thanks for saying that. And such a good point, right? And that's why we look for, I try to look for everybody, experts like you, experts like Montek, everybody, because you can pull from everybody's experience. And I'm sure even in our own lives, there's times where we go through seasons, right? Or maybe there's times in our lives where we do want more union, or maybe there's times where we just want to grab you by the back of the hair and the neck and, have sex in public. I don't know. Right. But so like there's these times, right, where it probably calls for that. And I think that's probably the beauty of growth in a relationship. Right.
Exactly.
Have you ever seen in terms of, I've read a lot about like polarities, and I was thinking about this the other day, and like one of the polarity, or even like energies and like chakra systems, and they say like I think in the root chakra, I think, is like connected to money, and a lot of guys are driven by money, but I think that's also like a very big sexual um energy source, right, in that lower pelvic area, right? Have you seen people that come through your workshops, they're not thinking, maybe they're not doing well in their business because they're all up in their head or they're having these issues, but unlocking this erotic energy was actually what was missing, and that like gave them more confidence, vitality, creativity, and then they went out and crushed it in other areas of their life because it was actually that was needed to be unlocked.
Yeah, sometimes people are very disconnected from their eroticism and their erotic energy, and people call it different things: root chakra, erotic embodiment, erotic power. But whatever it is, it's like a lack of integration. They're not
Mm.
feeling this part of themselves, and that being left out of the picture, like, completely disconnects them from their desire and their power. So they can't feel this kind of like leadership experience, and they don't feel confident, and they just feel like there's not any kind of internal inspiration, because so much of that comes from our desire, and eroticism is one of the places that we express that, but also success, and like going after what you want and making art, like all of it comes from this energy of aliveness, and our eroticism, if that's shut down, can really stop the whole aliveness system from moving forward towards whatever it is that we want.
Yeah, really neat. Is there anything that you would recommend? And I mean, everybody's so different, but is there anything you would recommend in a way that couples can maintain, either whether it's emotional connection or even just like erotic or physical touch? Is there anything that we can do daily, that we can do to tap into that daily?
Yeah, I love erotic embodiment. Erotic embodiment is just like a way, I'm just talking about first, like as an individual, because it's really hard to have no pilot light and then like to connect later on, so we want to make sure that the
Yeah.
pilot light is on. And we have like amazing practices to help people decompartmentalize sexuality and feel like, like bring all those sensations that we experience every day, including success, including feeling of like thrill around ideas, including, like the sun and the wind and the, like experiences with nature, including joy with children, everything. Bring it all the way down to your pelvic floor to feel, like not just to breathe it to your chest or your belly, but to feel it all the way down to your pelvic floor in order to have like a more unified experience of aliveness in the body. And then your pilot light is on. And then you can just like, like think about it and feel yourself as a sexual being. And then you start to like look at things in a more sexual way than if you're just like thinking from your head all the time.
I'm doing it right now. I'm like taking a deep breath and I'm just presencing my pelvic floor. Like I'm noticing that it's there. I'm feeling it, and I'm feeling the aliveness that starts to move up through my body. Even though I give it a couple little squeezes, move up into my body, like PC, move it up into my body. And I feel the energy moving into my belly, my chest, and my face. And this is just one of the many practices that we have in our erotic embodiment class. We actually have a special for your listeners, where we're going to give them some discount on the erotic embodiment class, because I do think that's the foundation, is to get fully into your body and your aliveness, and that's going to help you in your sex life and your work life and your friendships, and in every area of your life.
That is so good. I love what you both just said. Talk to us about some of those things. So obviously we have what you guys are doing mostly is a lot of the coaching and stuff, but there might be people listening right now. They're like, I don't want to be a coach and I don't want to work with one of your coaches, but I do want to take some of these courses. Like, so yeah, what are, if someone is interested in either working with you in what capacity, like kind of tell me like what we can look forward to, or what are some of the things, yeah, we can get involved in? Cause that course right there that you just talked about sounds amazing.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of classes at learn.somatica.com, and we have a special on our erotic embodiment class. So if people put in Joel Evans Evan 20, they get $20 off of our erotic embodiment class. But we also have classes on like, how to like relationship reboot that really like bring in the spark back for couples. We have like a sexuality and spirituality class if people are interested in some of that, like kind of connecting and merging kind of stuff that you were talking about earlier. So we have dating classes, how to be empowered in the dating world, really know what you want, go out and get it and communicate around that. So yeah, a whole host of classes at learn.somatica.com.
Yeah, and I really want to give another shout out to our like what turns you on class, because I think it's very foundational in helping people really find out what is what are the feelings they want to feel in order to get to that arousal, because we all go to sex to feel something, and that feeling also makes it much easier for us to have fantastic orgasm. So that's the motivation. So we really break it down. We give so many examples about potential turn-ons, and we really help people facilitate conversations with each other on how to talk about it with your partner, so you can start to introduce this concept. And
And we
for
have
couples to watch it, for couples to watch it together can be so awesome.
And we have tons of information on sexcoaching.com, and also all of our coaches are listed there, sexcoaching.com. If people do want to work one-on-one with a coach or as a couple, you can find amazing coaches on that website as well, sexcoaching.com.
I love that. Okay, so if we wanted to just, you recommend, Danielle, if we're to start, if you had to pick one, you had to start somewhere. What was the one that you said start with this one, and then probably then you can kind of pick
That's
pick
my,
all of them.
honestly, I love this class so much. It's called The Secret Guide to Turn On.
Yeah,
And it's really fantastic. I think every person should. I don't shoot people. Well, I do. Celeste doesn't shoot people. I shoot people. But, like just a little bit for
yeah,
their own benefit.
good. Yeah,
So that's really a great place to start. I think it's a fun, awesome class for couples to take together, because then they can like, okay, what turns you on? It's like a conversation starter to go deeper into like learning what is it that you really want in your sex life.
Yeah, screw a pack of cards, those cards you can buy that like say asking all those good questions. Screw that. Let's get right into it and get this course and start going through it. I love it. That sounds great. I wanted to ask you, before we kind of wrap things up, but just any other exciting projects that you both are working on that you can tell us about coming up in the future. I know you guys are both doing so much. You have 3 books that I didn't even talk about, but there's 3 different books you have out there that people can also, I love to read and stuff. So we all learn from different things, different consumption. So there's that. But yeah, anything else that you guys got cooking up?
Well, we do have a book. We have another book that we're working on. And then we have sort of a big surprise if you want to like follow us on Somatica Institute on Instagram. We have a big surprise coming up in mid-May, but we can't really talk about it yet. So we're champing at the bit to be able to talk about it. But yeah, if you keep an eye out and follow us, then you're going to see some big things coming out. And definitely we're going to get that book out as soon as we can.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and the 3 books, Making Love Real, Coming Together, and Confidence. I mean, all great stuff and great titles. I mean, they can just tell they all are working on different compartments in your relationship. So really, really good stuff. Last but not least, I wanted to ask you, well, anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
Uh, oh, we, oh, you
I felt
can,
like you were
you
so
edit it.
thorough.
It's just so much. I didn't even notice the time flew. Yeah. Okay. When is it coming out? Because maybe we'll tell you a secret already. When is the show coming out?
The show can come out whenever you want it to come out. I can time it for whatever's a good release, if it matters.
What do you say, Celeste? No,
I've nothing to say.
I can't pull it. We may need to come again, Joel, for the
Okay,
next one.
well, that's fine. You can always do that. Yeah, you guys are great.
Okay.
Okay. Last but not least, then tell us where there's so many different places that we can connect with you. Obviously, the website at Somatica, but tell me, where are you both most active either online on social? I know you mentioned Instagram earlier, but if people want to connect with you and just follow you and learn more of all the good things you're up to, what's a good place to follow? And then also drop that website. So if people want to get involved in the Somatica Institute, whether they're a coach or just someone that wants to start taking some of these courses to transform their relationship, where can they go?
Yeah, the website is somaticainstitute.com. And I think Instagram is a great place to follow us, which is somatica_institute.
Okay. Awesome. So nice and lovely to have both you ladies on the show. You blew my mind. I got a lot more to learn. I thought Susan Branton, the sex expert, taught me a lot, but you just took me to another level. So thanks again, Danielle Harel, Celeste Hirschman from the Somatica Institute. Appreciate you and looking forward to have you both back on again soon.
Thank you, Joel. I love your energy.
Same, same. It was so much fun. Looking forward to coming back.